I wanted to take the lives of 20 people in one evening, no matter who, as long as the bodies were found. These words are taken from the testimony of Andrei Evseev. Bravado will not seem if you study the materials of the Kanevsky maniac case well, and the appearance in 1974 of a dangerous criminal who attacked single women in Moscow and the region in the evenings was known only to professionals. Police officers, the KGB and the prosecutor's office. There was no doubt that the same person was acting. The handwriting of the crimes remained unchanged. He tracked down a well-dressed woman, followed her to the entrance and cruelly deprived her of her life, having previously selected everything of value. Andrei Nikolaevich Evseev, a Soviet serial killer and maniac who operated in Moscow and in the Moscow region in the mid-70s. Evseev was born in 1955. After dropping out of school after the 7th grade, he worked as a model, laboratory assistant, and sailor. He quit from everywhere because he didn't like to work. In the early 70s, Evseev was placed in a psychiatric clinic. As he later told me, I came out of the hospital a complete fool from all the drugs that were injected into me in the hospital. I was experiencing a very painful condition, difficulties in brain activity. I considered people to be my first enemies. The first victim of the maniac was a 16-year-old schoolgirl Marina Morozova, dressed in red clothes. The attack was committed by Evseev in the city of Zagorsk, now Sergiev Posad, Moscow region, on August 25, 1974. The executioner mercilessly took the girl's life. From Evseev's testimony, I went to Zagorsk specifically for the robbery and expected to act with the deprivation of life.
Hey, I'm not going to beat around the bush. You have to subscribe to the channel and like it so you don't miss new videos.
From the station at about 1900, I walked along the station square, crossed the crossing and went deeper into the village. Stalked for about an hour and a half. It was drizzling fine rain, it was cold. When this happened, it was already dusk. Greenery and bushes grew around all the houses. I saw a girl at the intersection. She was turning onto that road. Such a pretty girl, pretty, I remembered her appearance well. I followed, about 200 steps to a private house on the right side. He stopped her with a tug on her sleeve and pulled on her bag. She immediately retreated 3 steps. I made a live blow to the chest. The girl said, "Are you a fool or something?" She backed away, turned to face the house and ran through the gate. I made 2 blows to the right side of her back and saw that after a few steps her legs gave way. She tried to shout help. But it has already turned out to be a whisper. The porch she approached was on the side of the house. She tried to knock on the corner of the house, but only half raised her hand. I couldn't see any further, I ran away. I was confused at that moment, rushed away immediately after the blows and did not take the bag. The next deprivation of life was committed by Evseev a day later. The victim was a 66-year-old restaurant chef Gennady Kuzmin. Evseev attacked him with a knife near the Odintsovo railway station, took his life, then robbed him and dumped him into a roadside ditch. Evseev stole money from the victim and a grocery order that was scarce in Soviet times. Broiler chicken and 3 kilograms of Bulgarian peaches. On suspicion of committing these crimes in the Kemerovo region, a 19-year-old soldier Sergei Savelyev, who deserted on the eve of the first crime from a military unit, was arrested, but it was not possible to prove his involvement, despite the fact that he confessed to the attack on Morozova. As he later said, the police officers literally beat these confessions out of him. In September 1974 in Moscow, in the park of the recreation center named after the Third International, Evseev attacked a student Vladimir Parshin, stabbed him 4 times, but he survived. Thanks to the testimony of the surviving victim, the staff managed to make a sketch of the sketch. On the 24th of September of the 74th year in Moscow, in a house near the Dobrynskaya metro station, Evseev committed a robbery on Anna Levhim. The woman was on the verge of life and death, but she was also able to describe the attacker. According to her, the perpetrator was a young guy with sideburns and kind eyes. Soon the woman died in the hospital. After her testimony in the media, the maniac was given the nickname the Killer with Kind Eyes. On September 26, at the 43rd kilometer station in the Moscow region, Evseev attacked a man and seriously wounded him. During the attack, the maniac's knife broke, and the blade remained in the victim's back. The man died in the hospital. The victim was very similar to Evseev. They were 42-year-old Nikolai Dayumin, who spent almost 20 years in prison. As it turned out later, Evseev committed this attack in order to confuse the investigation by putting his clothes on the man. Initially, the investigators even thought that it was the criminal demon who committed all the robberies and deprived people of their lives. On the 8th of October of the 74th year in the Tagansky district of Moscow, Evseev committed 3 robberies at once. 2 of the 3 women robbed by him died from stab wounds. All the victims were wearing red clothes. Panic began in Moscow. People said that there was a maniac who attacks women in red. On October 15th, in the area of the Akademikskaya metro station, with an interval of 20 minutes, Evseev committed 2 more attacks on girls. One of them died from her wounds. On October 16th, in the area of the Proletarskia metro station, Evseev again committed a double attack. One of the victims died. The crimes were overgrown with bloody details. However, there were actually enough of them. But this time both victims were not wearing red clothes. Thus, the version that the maniac was hunting women in red was not confirmed. Then another series of robberies was committed by Evseev in Moscow and the region, but all the victims survived. They all described the attacker the same way. Due to the panic in Moscow, the leadership of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the USSR decided to take unprecedented measures. The Minister of Internal Affairs spoke on TV, who warned citizens to be careful. Evseev was scared and stopped his attacks for almost 2 years, fearing exposure. According to another version, he attacked these 2 years, just in another city, and later they could not be attributed to him. In November of the 76th year, Evseev committed 4 robberies in a month. 2 of them ended in lynching. In the autumn of 1977, Evseev hit Nina Dolinin, the secretary typist of the Central Committee of the CPSU, in the head with a screwdriver. She miraculously survived. The apotheosis of the criminal activity of the maniac was the cruel deprivation of the life of Lydia Kopryova, the wife of the famous Soviet artist Mikhail Kuprianov. This time the maniac used the girl posthumously for his sexual purposes for the first time. 2 months later, on the 19th of December, 1977, in front of dozens of people in the backyard of a household goods store in the village of Sofrino, he committed another attack. He took watches, money and jewelry, as well as a dog collar from the deceased League Shur. He posthumously abused his victim. A witness to the latest crime reported that he saw a suspicious citizen in corduroy pants on the spot. A local drinking company said that a certain Shakhnov appeared with them in corduroy trousers. These pants were found with blood stains on them. A knife was found in his pocket. However, when Shakhnov was arrested, he said that another person had given him these pants. The examination confirmed the correctness of Shakhnov's testimony. Another witness said that he saw a stranger on the train in Kotkovo, and then he was wearing a railway worker's uniform. When the database was raised and citizens suitable for the signs were selected from it, the surviving victims identified 22-year-old Andrei Evseev as a criminal. On December 28, 1977, the maniac was detained. On this day, he decorated the Christmas tree with jewels stolen from his victims. When they came for him, he hid the jewelry, and nothing suspicious was found at Evseev's apartment, except for the collar stolen from the last victim. Evseev explained that he keeps a collar in memory of his beloved dog. At first, he refused to testify, but on December 31st, on the eve of the new year, in a conversation with a cellmate, he dropped a strange phrase, "My mother probably already baked pies with brulees." The cellmate turned out to be an informant. The researchers guessed that the stolen jewelry was hidden in a bag of flour. The guess was confirmed during the second search of Evseev's apartment. After the arrest, the criminal tried to mow down a fool. In his testimony, he wrote, "When I came out of the mental hospital, where I was being treated in the 72nd year, there was not a single thought in my head for medical drugs. A very painful condition. I considered people to be the first enemies. I had a feeling of revenge, anger that passed after the crime was committed." However, these explanations were completely refuted by the materials of the investigation and the conclusions of the medical examination. The main purpose of all crimes was profit. This conclusion is confirmed by the testimony of the tormentor himself. "I was preparing for my crimes, running cross-country at the stadium every day, doing dumbbells, mastering sambo wrestling. I was sure that no one would catch me." During interrogations, Evseev was defiant, refused to communicate with the female investigator. He agreed to testify only after salted herring was brought to him, which he ate whole with bones. The maniac confessed to committing 9 murders, 18 attempts, 1 abuse and 32 robberies. The total count of his crimes reached 60. The forensic psychiatric examination found Evseev completely sane, but at the same time called him a sociopath. While awaiting trial, the executioner took great care of himself. "I did exercises every morning." The maniac did not repent of what he had done, declared that he despises those who work and live from paycheck to paycheck. In the 79th year, the court sentenced Andrei Evseev to capital punishment. Death penalty by firing squad. Soon the sentence was carried out. Several documentaries have been made about him in popular culture. The most famous, Murderers with Sideburns, a film from the series Investigation, was conducted with Leonid Kanevsky in Murderers with Kind Eyes, a film from the legend of the Soviet detective cycle.